with their permission, could be passed on to potential employers or anybody like that. The other thing is that HUD has a uh, MOU with DOL, Department of Labor, and so every housing authority that has one of these programs, the DOL should be on what's called their program coordinating committee. And therefore, local workforce centers should be able to work with the housing authority or anybody else who's on that committee in developing a strategy.
Mm, wow. Well, Renee Brown, did you know that that MOU existed between DOL and HUD?
No, I did not. And I would also definitely like to commend and compliment you, Renee, for having that master's in rehabilitative services because, I mean, that is amazing. It just opens up your ability to um, connect the points of light. And I would say to any of our young people, that under one of the hardest things or the barriers that I've seen is if you need supports, you don't receive them unless you say that you have that need, that there is a gap, that there is that feeling of being less. But you have to do that in order to have the documentation to help you and to give you that lift that is so essential. And it is very, very hard being young and saying that you're different or that you are below what's considered the normative um, standards. And it's just, there are so many services that are available, but you have to open yourself up and say, yes, go ahead and assess me. Yes, go ahead and say that I need XYZ because there is that gap between where I am and where I need to be.
Hmm.
And then I would turn around and say to you, Renee, am I on point or would you like to add anything to that?
Well,
Um,
Renee Brown, what I may ask, if you can really introduce yourself now
Okay.
and all the things that you do day to day in your day job, as well as the things you do on the peripheral to
Right.
try and bring some leadership to DAS.
Well said, because there's the day job. And in my day job, I am in the Division of Apprenticeship Standards. And my role now is that I am helping programs write those standards, get it passed, and then sitting on the committee, um, of course, with the program that's within business services, and and help it serve the community, get those those apprentices um, registered, functioning, and to have that program ensure that they are doing what they're supposed to do and connecting all those dots. I'm not out there wrangling from the front end anymore so much as I'm on the other side of the house and writing the standards and getting it done. um, then there are my other lives. There was my educational life that started when I was, gosh, 23 maybe, and then didn't I didn't return to higher education until I was in my 40s, and my husband had dropped out of the workforce because he had a heart attack. And there I was with my little low paying job, and trying to navigate getting a degree. Do I need a degree? How do I get that degree? How do I navigate all of that while I have a job, while I have overtime obligations? And did I mention I had a baby when I was 19? And that baby had autism and all the other things. Went through all of that, got him to go to college. Well, he had a baby while he was in college, and we went and picked up that 2-week old baby who ended, and we have adopted her. So she is my daughter at this point, but she has issues. Let's see, on a chromosomal level, autism, ADD, what else? Intellectual disability, but now because of what we knew from the first time around and the connections that we made, um, she, ooh, she has exceeded her lifetime expectations and she has not paused. So it's, she's taking some extra time to get to the different markers, but you know, she's working it, but we definitely have to help and provide that lift. And I ended up with all of this getting a master's in negotiation and conflict resolution, which was helpful because all I did was negotiate and deal with conflict. And I mean, even now, as we are, oh my gosh, I'm going through ninth grade for the third time because there was my journey, my son's journey, now my daughter's journey, and and we're over at University High, which was 3 blocks away from the evacuation line for the Palisades fires. But it's also a what do I want to say? It's Kevin, help me out. It's a what level one? It's like Hamilton High. It has the same rating, but I know that as we're, entering into this campus, and it's like, oh yes, we have, all these IEPs. We know we don't have time to read them. What? I mean, and Renee, what I'm talking about. They don't have time. They don't want to. There's the classes that we were signing up for, and then there were the classes that we were told that you're going to have. And so I have my daughter with definitely problems with fine motor skills, fighting for occupational therapy. And what do? They stick her into a painting class, and I'm looking at this class and I remember, and it's, oh my gosh, yes, this was the drawing class that I had at University High where I graduated from. And it's just, nobody wants to hear, nobody wants to listen. They just want to kick the can. And so when you look at apprenticeship, I mean, definitely Kevin and I had discussions about pre-apprenticeship because a lot of these kids, young adults, et cetera, they're not ready to work. They need polish. They need help. They don't know what they don't know, and they don't know how to advocate for themselves. And that part of my life, well, that ends up wrapping into apprenticeship too, because I see it and I was literally, oh my gosh, I'm going to confess. So Kevin and I ended up being friends in all of this as all of our points of light connected. And I'm telling him, it's like, all right, I'm looking at, as we're trying to lighten my daughter's, backpack because there's 17 sets of stairs at uni that you will navigate through. And it's like, I'm reading through the syllabus and it's like, oh, you took this looks like I'm reading something directly out of apprenticeship, but I'm looking at a ninth grader, not a 12th grader, but a ninth grader, and the expectations that are there for functionality in English. And yet, I know darn well that there are students that graduate that do not meet those standards. And yet, when someone is graduating from high school, the expectation is you're either going to go to college, and good luck with that. Hopefully you don't end up in debt and you may not have a clue in the very beginning, or you're going out into workforce. And if you're going out into workforce, how do you get your first job? How do you know how to help yourself? And then the biggest challenge in California and certainly Los Angeles is, where are you going to live? If you don't want to live with your parents, or even if you are still with your parents, um, what do you do? And I had neighbors in their 90s, and they've passed, but I remember, oh my God, Mary Jane would say when they passed that their house was a scraper, that they would just scrape it right off, the land and build whatever else they wanted to build, because they were, oh, they were a cute couple, but her husband Harold was in the Navy, and he married Mary Jane, and that was their house that they purchased right after World War II. And it was not remodeled, any of the rest. But today yes, it probably is going to be scraped off the land and have some big house or McMansion built. But for any of us, I'm a renter. I was very blessed when COVID happened, and I was able to get an apartment that was near, I mean, just our doctors, all of the services for our daughter. And I got lucky, and I got rent control. Um, and I have no shame in saying I'm paying $2,500 a month for a 2 bedroom. But it is hard for any young person. How do you know what you're even signing with a lease? Where you mentioned with HUD. And now I'm going to go back to my education, because when I was there, I was in my 40s, and I was negotiating. I was a mediator for LA County Consumer and Business Affairs. So every Wednesday for 2 years, I'm over in LA Superior Court in small claims and in unlawful detainer, learning all about those different things and helping people um, have representation. Those people that don't have the money to spend lots of money to have a lawyer, to have some guidance, and to help them find equity and justice within their housing and within those agreements. And I remember those Section 8 vouchers and the rest of it. And it's like you may have the voucher, and there are awesome things that you can do, but you also have life that happens. And then how do you negotiate with the landlords? Or they want to get rid of you and they want to get someone else. But yes, you can find success, but you do need support and you do need guidance. And unfortunately, no one really has the time or the ability on an individual basis to help everyone that needs help. But it's, at least now that we have the internet, we have more. One thing COVID did for all of us was it gave us more virtual connectivity, and it made it normative. And not, where you're, oh, please, oh, this, oh, that. Now it's like, okay, I've got you. I've got Zoom. Let's do the Zoom room. And everyone learned on a certain level. Um, but in terms of apprenticeship, my role is I want to develop the programs that will provide jobs, that will help people get up to at least some standard of living within the state of California. And my sector is business services. But, of course, I'm taking everything that I've learned from my life, and it's all, I mean, everything gets rolled up, and I serve. I serve in whatever capacity needs service. And if I can't, or if I don't know, I have no problem connecting people, connecting potential apprentices of whatever age. And how do you manage your life? And what Kevin does with Dakar and with Heartbeat Studios is, how do you even learn to be an entrepreneur and work for, where you have a skill set and you can work for yourself and be your own business. But you've got to go out there, and what are you doing? You're negotiating, and you're looking at, how am I going to do this? Um, Kevin, in terms of workforce, how do how do employers get paid? Who gets compensation, or how is it built in when you're looking to give all of this extra supportive care? And there are definitely government programs that are out there, but there is a huge knowledge gap between where those public services are and who you can connect with who truly is a public servant. I listen to you speak, Renee, and you care. It's not just a job. It's something that is personal for you, and you have that care, and it's, oh, Where can, let me connect you. That's one of my greatest joys, is connecting people to other people that can help give you that lift that's needed, or be able to identify and say, I know someone, or I know a service, I know how to do this. And Kevin has certainly learned how to braid those services, or even in speaking with people, it's talking about, specifically where are those areas that they can create lift, and how do you negotiate to get, as a nonprofit, even to get laptops or get equipment, have space to conduct trainings, help people learn that it's like, yes, you need, I don't know, you need boots for your job, for your job. Well, WIOA will help you with some of those supplies and things that you need. And all of these are very, very important, especially as just everywhere you look now, people are struggling with housing. And it is housing first. People need to have that security and safety, that you are safe, that you are protected from the elements, and then you can take a deep breath and sleep for a little bit, and not worry that someone is going to threaten your safety, or even just what you've collected to try and survive. And then, don't sleep too, don't take a nap too long, because you've got to get on a computer. If you don't have one, then you're going down to the library and starting to, what do you need to do? You need to apply for jobs. And how are you eligible for those jobs? Well, you've got to figure all that out. And I would speak to also, because I have sat down, and it's like, I understand what that rehabilitative degree, and even going through the rehabilitative services, anyone who has a disability. And I would venture to say, if you're willing to sit down and talk to, whether it's mental health services, whether it is a doctor, get yourself documented, become a client of Department of Rehabilitation, because even becoming a client of Department of Rehabilitation um, opens you up. It makes you eligible for so many other things. And I will definitely say, I have no shame. I am disabled. I do need, I have been blessed with being able to work for the state of California, but I need to go and register myself with Department of Rehabilitation, so that that identification is there in any of the areas that I may need,
Wow.
when, all
Renee,
those things. And I need
Renee,
to shush now.
yeah, well, no, I mean, again, and what I want to do before I have these two guys introduce themselves is I want to stick a pin in this MOU between HUD and DOL to see if we can figure out where that is, and figure out how to fish it out, the ocean, so that we can share whatever it is, that it's not being, again, administered to some degree, at least in any pilot project we can figure out, because,
I can send it to you.
oh my God, yeah. And
It's
so,
not hidden.
and Renee also has been gracious enough to send us an RFP for a grant that the housing department is looking for submission. And Renee, what's that grant for?
I don't know, Kevin.
Okay, well,
Oh
it's
my
really to
gosh,
try to
I'm
get
trying to think
people.
which one, because there was
Well,
a grant that I even looked at, that yesterday, that opened up for, it's through the what is it, California, I want to say the community colleges, but it was like, it was for, to support women into apprenticeships, or helping with employment. I'd have to go back and read it, but this is first quarter, and being a good government employee, and as well, Kevin, because you touch government as well, that a lot of this is first quarter, and a lot of things are going to start opening up. Staff has People have left positions, taken positions. um, Things have been shuffled all around, and you've got to keep your eyes out because those grants will, come out and be open for a limited window of time, and you want to be able to apply. And for any of the students or anyone looking at it, if you're looking to have a grant, the only thing I would personally tell you is follow the directions. Read the directions, follow the directions, and it is very important that you put your answers in the correct boxes. And that is all I can say about that, but it's a lot of very worthy programs and people have missed out because they have not done the basics.
Wow. Okay, so now Renee Tarver is sending that MOU. This is giving us something after we get off the call that we can actually investigate what are the next steps to looking at any linkages between any of the things that we're talking about, because that's just an amazing discovery that something could exist between these two agencies. So now, if I can, who do you want to introduce first, yourself or CJ? Who do you think should go first?
No, I think CJ can go first. I'm a second.
Oh, CJ, you're muted.
Hello, everybody. My name is CJ Campbell, and I am a mentee of Kevin Clark, and I also co-teach a class at Solo with Sunny. I'm working on a housing proposal for a grant currently. So I resonate and I'm very grateful for your guys' time and the things that you guys have said, like sharing your experiences. And I think that's it for my intro.
That was it.
No, man. Hey, we're talking about your aspirations. I mean, again,
He's humble. He's humble.
I want to know
Well,
who you
one
are.
day I would love to have a successful media company one day. I started off doing music. I would love to be a communications major, but as of right now, I am like trying to make things work. I'm blessed to have a one-bedroom apartment, admittedly. But yeah, no, it's tough. I'm looking for a job. That's why I'm not home right now. Um, but yeah, now hearing your guys' stories like pushes me further a lot because like the things you said are things that I might have experienced or have fears of, or friends where, like I've had a friend where I wanted to help him and I couldn't see eye to eye with him and his parents didn't want him home either. And I have to sit with that in my head where I'm like, why couldn't I help him? Or how could I make sure that never happens again to anybody? You know?
Yeah. CJ, how old are you?
I'm 23.
Better him than me.
Okay, great. And so I guess Sonny Wyken Harris,
My name is
yourself, and then tie together how you met CJ and all the other great young people that we had on our Heartbeat Zoom orientation, because you have a unique position of not only being a leader, but also a person who can really find these people and kind of drive them someplace. So you possibly represent a lot more of the force multiplication for a young person who can find a way to get other people to lean in and to listen maybe for the first time ever.
Well, Kevin, I thank you for that introduction. My name is Wyken Sonny Harris. I am a mentee of Kevin Clark, and I'm a mentor with the Dakar Foundation. I am also a political strategist and a grant acquisitionist in training. My focuses are socioeconomic and municipal practices. In my day-to-day, I am a teacher with the Sola Foundation, one of the largest nonprofits in the South Central area. And my day-to-day looks like empowering the youth and turning them into full-fledged entrepreneurs. My mentorship program, I've turned people like my friend here, CJ, into creative professionals, allowing them to work and pursue their passions full-time while also providing economic opportunities. My goal and aspirations are political. I aim to hold a seat somewhere of office, and my goal is to really unite our and really provide equitable disbursement to multiple people, because I understand as somebody who's biracial that, when it comes to our communities, Black and Brown, they're extremely divested and underserved. So my to really bring these resources here because I would like to make an impactful moment and really excel my communities and other communities so that way we all have equal footing in today's society. I'm also 26.
Wow, great. And Sonny, or Wyken, I'm going to call you Wyken. Can you tell us who SOLA is? I think Renee and both Renees probably don't know enough about SOLA Impact.
Yeah, so SOLA has two fronts. SOLA, the nonprofit, focuses on technology, resource, and education and arts. So at our main campus, we focus on creative entrepreneurship, whether that be through creative agency or, you know, if you have entrepreneurial aspirations, we can find you a mentor, or we have access to different resources at our technology centers. Like we have a whole maker studio. And then on the opposite side, for the for-profit sector, SOLA is actually one of the biggest realtors in LA as well. So this is why I think it's so important for us to have this conversation. I thank you both Renees for being here. And the reason I raised my hand was because I saw the immediate alignment here. And one of the things Kevin and I were discussing is how to rope in SOLA and apply those incentives so that way we can bring them on board for the housing projects. Because for us, with our workforce program, we see an immediate alignment to not only give people access to jobs, but collaborate with a full-time employer who is going to be able to hire these people on in perpetuity. So that way, at least with the housing program, not only can we provide incentives for them to give housing, but we're also offering up a workforce that they can utilize in their own businesses. So that way it's full circle, and we can definitely create a very hardworking pipeline of different creative professionals who are seeking work actively and want to use this program to better themselves and also gain economic advantages.
Wow. And Wyken, do you know of any digital or any information that we can share about the Destination Crenshaw project? Because that is a perfect example. Well, I just found something. I'm going to put it in the chat. But if you can describe what the SOLA Crenshaw Destination Crenshaw project is going to be and how potentially you guys are going to move in there into this space, because this is one of the redevelopment projects, big redevelopment projects that I've seen since I've been here in LA for almost 20 something years.
Yeah, so especially with this project, it's really about understanding the legacy of the community. And rather than kind of like gentrifying the area where it's non-Black businesses and, you know, people who aren't necessarily contributing to our community, we really want to build an economic opportunity and allow different Black talent to occupy these spaces. So that way, in regards to the spaces we're building, we're really honoring our story and our history of that space, and really making sure that what we bring to the table is beneficial and doesn't take away from the history of the spaces that we're building in. So for us, it's really about understanding who we're there to service and how the impact we're being made with these housing structures.
Wow.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Very quick, because I don't have much time anyway. It's Crenshaw and where? What's the main cross street? Just give so I can visualize the area.
And
Where the LAX airport.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
and this,
that's
Destination
there's a lot of
Crenshaw.
potential
Destination Crenshaw. This is a huge, you know, redevelopment project, housing, small business, all the stuff that you can imagine that they're going to try and use as a is kind of a baseline of what redevelopment for that Crenshaw corridor before the Olympics. This is what
1.3 miles of art and culture. So basically, they're taking that entire section and just trying to turn it into more of a touristy area, because I feel like a lot of the areas that are celebrated are very, for lack of better terms, white dominated, and there's not a lot of representation when it comes to our communities. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stereotypes and a lot of disparagement, even though there are a lot of hardworking people who exist in those communities as well, who are just actively trying to make a living and you know, embrace their culture as well. So I think in regards to this, it'd be an amazing opportunity to really invoke Black awareness and also the understanding that we as a people and a culture have so much to provide to this great city.
Wow. And Wyken, have you guys worked with any of the people from Destination Crenshaw? I've met a couple of them, but I haven't been able to daisy
Me,
chain them together.
Me personally, on the nonprofit sector, I haven't had that privilege yet, but I know on the for-profit sector, we've definitely been in talks with them, and we have some things in plan. But unfortunately, I don't work in that half of the industry, so my focus is really more so with the nonprofit sector. However, we do align and correlate.
Right. And with the Renee Brown, how much time do you have before you have to jump off?
Probably like now.
Well, one of the things that I invited Renee Brown to meet you guys is because we've been talking about the American Job Centers of California and using that as a hub to have some type of activity / event where we can talk about not only our needs, but our capabilities and how we can create a way to maybe use this as an opportunity to daisy chain some of the other AJCCs who are not doing this kind of stuff that's really youth focused and youth driven. So Renee Tarver, before Renee Brown gets off, go ahead, Renee.
Oh, yeah, before you get off, Renee, I want to brag about my son. And I live in San Diego County, but he got with the Workforce Partnership, he got a training through UCSD for 9 months. The workforce paid for it. It was $11,000, and he had to pay back the money once he started earning $60,000. So he was in digital marketing, and he's paid off that loan, and therefore he's making more than $60,000. So,
Hey, well, hey, congratulations to your son. That's great. That's what programs are for.
yeah.
I needed to hear that too. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. So really, what we're looking for, Renee, both Renees, is the 19th. Putting together all of our efforts to talk about an agenda that will create a way for these young folks to bring their peers to talk about, the way ahead and all the things that we can do to start creating maybe a sustainable table of things that could help bring more points of light to the things that we just don't know anything about, like MOUs between agencies. So the 19th is what I'd like to have you guys think about helping Renee and potentially one of her staff members from the Division of Apprenticeship Standards come to the event on the 19th to talk about careers, all the resources that state.
Send it to me again, because I'm having a meeting at 2:00, and that's when I'm talking to someone in communications, and just, it's like, what, and they're asking, what are we doing? What can we highlight? And definitely I can see something, but it's like, help me sell this, Kevin.
Sure. Yeah. And so,
and then, I mean, even like developing an agenda, that there's an opportunity to be on that agenda, be directive as to what, we can speak to on that. And that I love it that there is physical space to go to, and it connects with so many different things that are happening within the city. And there's always what I would call, it's like the replicative effect, or like a digital twin, where what you do in one place, it's like take that cookie cutter and go, and you can replicate it in other places.
Wow.
Because people are, like the Crenshaw Project, and it's like binging my brain being a neighborhood kid. And it's like, okay, I remember that. And I remember where it was being built, and then everything kind of stopped with COVID. And now definitely there are lots of agendas out there to get people housed, get them working, because the Olympics are coming, but also our residents of the city and the county, I mean, not just city of LA, because there's so many little cities, but w- our citizens or members of the public, deserve that. And I definitely remember when I was mediating with LA County Consumer and Business Affairs, and
Mhm.
then I was turning around and training mediators once I completed my master's. It's their mission statement was to provide equal access to justice, but also I learned that what I would always have referred to as the general public, um, growing up and having my adult life, but I was told that not to use that terminology anymore, that we are all members of the public. So it's not like there's general public and then there's other pieces of public, but we are all members. And that speaks to what you're talking about too, Kevin, with governance and educating people and learning. It's like, you have a voice and you are a member of the public. And so be that member, and hopefully you get access to those services that are out there to help you, and then you are successful and you have the capacity to pay those loans back or turn around and do something for the community.
Wow. Well, Renee, we'll try to get you something in the next hour or so that we can look at it.
That's fine. 2 o'clock is my time slot, so I'm going to
Okay.
actually say goodbye now.
Okay. Well,
And
good. So I'll send you something so that we can at least have some Google Doc for a potential agenda for you
something
guys.
to spark a conversation and interest, and even if it's not with me within business services, anything I can do, it's like there should be some way that Division of Apprenticeships standards can connect.
Okay. And I just dropped in there. There's a gentleman with the city of LA,
Okay.
Ozzy Lopez, who's already committed to come and speak. But yeah, this guy
Instead
is
of the chat, pop it to my work email. That's the
got
best
it.
thing you can do
Okay.
for me right now.
Okay.
Okay, I gotta say
Thank you, Renee.
goodbye,
Bye-bye.
but thank you so much.
Time.
Bye.
Appreciate you.
Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting
Appreciate it.
everybody.
Okay. So and so for you guys to study what Renee Tarver has sent as a grant opportunity, one of the things that I would like to have you guys do is really understand the business of looking at these RFPs and looking at how you guys can start to analyze these as opportunities to help you guys understand what the acumen is needed to really, again, respond to the grants and potentially win a grant and be able to empower yourself to be part of a process that says that you can start to braid all of these grants and all these RFPs together. Whether or not you win the grant or not, it's just being able to understand the process, which is really going to be building a skill set that very few young people know how to do. And there's so much of this that needs to have young people. Renee Tarver?
I just wanted you to know that HUD has a website for developers.
Mm.
Oh, what is the name of that website? I will write it down right now.
You just go to HUD.gov and then put in developers.
Yeah, so for your conversation with the CEO of Sola, just doing some research to figure out what's in it for him. All the things that could allow him to lean in a little further and say, hey, tell me more. And look at you as potentially the consultant or the strategist to figure out, well, what are these features and benefits mean for Sola? This would be a great way to develop value.
And then, quick question, Renee, you were on the California Jobs First seminar, correct?
Yeah, I think what Renee has been, yeah. So I'm trying to rope her into some of the things that California Jobs First is doing. one of the things that I've invited her to is to look at something that wasn't part of the California Jobs First Catalyst grant thing, which is definitely something Renee Tarver, I want you to know about. There's a grant that I'm going to bring these young men in on that I want to submit for an implementation, which is really the back of the envelope idea for $400,000 that I think that we can get, because I know that we can solve a lot of the unmet needs of the 9 service planning areas of LA County, which really means is that they are all fighting for the same dollars, the same resources. And there's nothing that has really been talked about that can be one solution that could actually touch all 9 geographies. And all 9 geographies have different ethnic, racial composition. So if somebody was a strategist and they say, well, how could we come up with something that's going to touch all of these different people in LA County, what would it be? And we know all of those people have some common need. And I know, as we've discussed, safety is probably the number one thing, which is housing. All 9 service planning areas of LA County are fighting with the same thing: is how do we find affordable housing and getting people off of the housing rolls and into sustainable, or as you said, the family self-sufficiency standards, that housing is set for people to not just get the housing, but to get off of it at some point and get into self-sufficiency. What does that mean? Well, they need careers, they need businesses, they need all kinds of things so that they don't have to be married to the subsidies forever. And that's what I think happens, is people get this stuff and they get stuck because no one gives them another bridge to figure out what they can do to, do something more than just be stuck on welfare and workfare and job fair and all this other fares. So that's what I'm thinking.
Actually is a it's called the California Self-Sufficiency Standard. And you can go and put in the size of the family, the ages of the kids, and it'll tell you what people need to earn in order to be self-sustained without government assistance.
Wow. And see, those are the statistics, the data that people need to know, that they're either going to be honest with themselves and say that we can meet that standard, or we can meet this index, or we're not. And then at the end of the day, you've done a wonderful thing, which is to give them an opportunity to draw their own conclusions of what they want to do with themselves. Because some people may say, hey, I'm cool. I don't want to do anything other than just be safe.
Well, let me tell you, the numbers are daunting at first. The numbers are daunting, but it's talking about without no food stamps, no transportation, no childcare assistance. It's just talking about like what you and I do. We work on our own, right? So wow. Sometimes I don't start out with them knowing that number. I know the number, and then when they start talking about what their goals are, for instance, people always come and they want to be nurses' aides. Well, that's lovely. A nurse's aide makes $11.50 an hour. In order for you to be self-sufficient, you're going to have to make $34 an hour. So you're going to be a CNA, you're going to be an LVN, and then you're going to look at something else in the medical field, but you're not going to stop with CNA.
And that is what I think, if people knew more, or they knew what the standards are, they could calculate and potentially do better in terms of planning for this thing called self-sufficiency, or independent living, or any of these other things that I think a lot of the young people I've met don't know what these numbers they have to meet. It's just not some magical thing that says, hey, man, I'm going to get out there, I'm going to make money. Well, you can make money and still not be able to have safety.
Exactly. And the other thing I wanted to say is, If you're talking about bringing people off the streets and putting them into housing, which is Housing First, lovely thing, because I've worked with homeless populations, they're not ready to work.
No, and that's what I want, Wyken. I want you to know that, I don't know who the constituency that Solo wants to serve with this affordable housing, but the quickest way to turn that development into something that is not going to be sustainable is for people who are not prepared to do anything else other than to get to safety and stay in safety. They're not going to compete, thrive, or do anything more to create another standard for how that community and the culture and anything else is going to be, because people just want to get in from the rain and that's all they can see is on the horizon. I need to get to safety. And too many people realize that's the quickest way to get their unmet needs met for right now, but that's really the dangerous thing, because it's just a false hope that you're going to be safe.
Yeah, and I think that's where our incentive with the workforce program comes in, is that, especially with the dormitory idea, is that rather than expecting SOLA to have these spaces for people who might not take advantage of the economic resources also available, especially when it comes to sustainable jobs, I think by offering the incentive of the workforce program, I think that they would realize that, hey, the people that they aim to service through our efforts are people who are like 90% of the, like we said, 90% of the way there. They just need a little bit of extra time and a little bit of extra help to really get past the finish line. So that way they can be cycled out of this program and seek, full-time employment without having the economic disadvantages of not having these resources and the support. Because a lot of the people we aim to service, they're already hardworking. They're already part of a workforce program. It's just like this little extra incentive that we can provide to really help people get beyond the finish line. And I think that's really where our goals stand. And with looping in SOLA, there's the opportunity to loop them in as full-time employers and say, hey, you might find some candidates for your own efforts through this workforce program that would be excellent applicants and qualify for a job with SOLA in the future. So I think we definitely have some incentives for them, whether it be tax exemptions or just employment incentives, you know what I mean, where we can actually get some very qualified and educated people to their efforts.
Wow. So what we have to do is put together some type of working document that talks about all the potential partners that could be part of the puzzle pieces to something that could become something that grants can connect with, to get to, I believe, at least a minimum of 6 months of trying to get these people placed, and the housing and all the other social services that are there as safety nets to make sure that the people get a fair chance to get to a placement that gives them a prevailing wage and a growth industry and a growth position to live in LA City, LA County. That's, but he's gonna have to crunch the numbers. And that's what I think the data is going to show, and it's going to project and predict who's going to be able to meet these numbers if they have these set of resources. In this data set, these set of resources are going to have to be included in order for these people to reach these these milestone dates for 6 months or to a year. And that's why AI is going to be so important in terms of giving the calculation of all the things that are known, especially the things that are unknown, about helping people start this journey to get to some place where we can see if there is any real there's really any fruit from from this tree. So that's what I'd like to see happen, and I want to continue to talk about what are the problems, what are the needs, so that we can bake all this into to one pie.
So, if I may, one of the issues with Housing First that people don't like is that you can't require people to do anything.
Oh,
It's all voluntary.
wait a minute. So they get into housing, so they qualify to get into housing, and then what happens? They can't be touched in terms. They just they don't have to comply to anything, right?
Well, they have to comply to the housing rules and stuff,
Right, but
but
that's it.
they don't have to comply with wraparound services. They don't have to comply with any of that other stuff.
Okay, so one of the things that we found when we were going through the HACC to get the wraparound services, they then could include housing vouchers, is that some young people may not know that they have to sign up for selective service. And that was a shock to all of us yesterday. And
Really?
then some people will say, well, gee whiz, I don't want to be in selective service, so I don't want the resources. I don't want housing. I don't want safety. I don't want to vote. I want nothing to do with any of those things because I don't want to be part of selective service. And so what we're trying to investigate is what is so wrong with selective service. Is there some other side of selective service where people can look at some careers or some resources and not possibly have to be the recipients of the mandate that says that you have to do it legally or you're going to be penalized or you're going to be discounted and basically you're going to be given whatever it is that the government wants you to have. Because that's one of the things that we're trying to figure out now is if people are faced with the reality that there are pathways and there's resources, well, do they really want to jeopardize those by not complying with the law? So for HUD, do they have to sign up with selective services?
Yes.
Oh, see,
Perfect.
you guys, see? So
Yeah.
you can't get any housing without, so you can't get around this stuff, man.
And
Yeah, well,
I had a client who wanted to buy a home and he had never signed up for selective services. Guess what? Can't do it.
See, and we had them talk to General Bray yesterday and some of the other people who are, kind of not pro or con, but just, to give these young people who don't even know what selective service is a chance to understand that it is a reality. But what are your choices? And more importantly, if you make a choice, what's behind that door that maybe nobody's telling you about so that it doesn't look like the boogeyman?
And it actually is not the draft. It is just a list of people who are eligible for the draft.
Yeah, and so people are going to assume if they don't know anything, oh my God, I'm going to get drafted.
We haven't drafted anybody since Vietnam.
Well, but we were discussing, well, the climate that we're in with the present administration, could that change?
It could change, but then there always were draft dodgers.
Conscientious objectors. General Bray broke down all the different things that people
Right.
could do, but more importantly, Wyken is trying to figure out how people can understand governance, the laws, the policies, and all the things that people maybe aren't aware of that can get you not only behind the curve, but potentially get you ahead of the curve so that if you understand all these things and all these terms and rules, how can you play the game to win? And so he was saying that there were careers potentially even in defense where you'd never, be in harm's way and you could possibly make six figures and be in engineering and STEM or STEAM career pathway. So that's what General Bray and this other gentleman was speaking about is how could you take advantage of what most people don't know in terms of what this door could be is to look at this thing and not look at it as selective service, but look at elective service to something that could give you some options that may be a barrier.
I think when you're 18, you think a lot differently than you do when you're 30. And so, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, and that's the goal of mentoring, is that you're not going to be 18 forever.
Exactly.
At some point, you got to have somebody tell you some things that are not really palatable for an 18-year-old person who essentially says, "Hey, I don't want to get to independent living. I don't want to be a grown up until I can do it at my own term and stay safe and stay free." But unfortunately, what the selective service thing has done for me is to realize that this is part of adulting. And
And it has been since.
it's scary because I never had to deal with it. I never had to deal with selective service or draft. I grew up in an era where all those things, and I'm an advocate of service to the country or service to someone else, but I never had to deal with it. So it's hypocritical for me to say that people should not think of this as the boogeyman, but at the end of the day, it's a reality. It's a law. It's part of our governance. And how do we do a workaround so it doesn't look like what I think a lot of people who aren't aware would say, well, gee whiz, this is not fair because I don't have anything. I don't have any resources. I have a lack of this and that. And yet they're asking me to serve a country where I'm not getting anything out of it. That's one of the things that I'm thinking
Well,
that we should have a discussion about.
to interject right there, I think when you talk about not getting anything out of it, I think the counterpoint with that would be the government incentives that we're willing to provide as far as like these workforce programs. Because even with HUD, you can't get HUD without being on selective service. Selective service is also tied to your ability to vote. So I think realistically, the way that I would approach it, especially when it comes to SOLA, is the fact that the selective service is a requirement, is the like I said, it's accountability check, right? The people who are signing up for these programs are saying, hey, if worse comes to worse, I'm holding myself to a higher standard and higher accountability. And these are the people that we aim to service because these are the type of people who are going to be contributing to society at a higher level because of these resources and because of these programs. So when we talk to somebody who's a developer like Sola, these are the kind of people that we're trying to bring to the table to make sure that they have equal and access to something that's going to help better our communities because we can't invest into our own communities if there's no money to spend. You know what I'm saying? So for me, like especially with the selective service, it's more of like General Brigg was saying, like an accountability thing. Like in order to have like if you want if and I would say like with what we're doing, it's at a high level. So I mean, we're at a higher standard as far as like the resources and things you can get because at least with us, we're not saying, hey, you're just going to get drafted into the military. We're trying to provide you with opportunities to get ahead of it and say, hey, if this were the case, maybe you should look into IT. Maybe you should look into these things. And I think by bringing in General Brigg and other government officials, I think it would remove a lot of the hypervigilance of what that may be and allow people to have a more open-minded experience and conversation about the benefits of it. Because me personally, before I talked to General Briggs, I was apprehensive and I'm already aged out. You know what I mean? So um, I understand that sentiment and where people my age might be coming from. Because like General Briggs was saying, like you can sign up for selective service at 18, but you can't drink, you can't rent a car. And there's a lot of things at 18 you can't even do. You're not really an adult at 18. So
Yeah.
me, one of the things I wanted to do, and it is a North Star. It is a bit of a hypothetical. Maybe it can happen, but the I was trying to see if there's a way to maybe appeal part of that process because I know it would be a deterrent for a lot of hardworking people because at 18, 19, 20, if I saw this, that would be an immediate deterrent for me. Even if it was for economic advantage, I'd be like, what? Like, what does this mean? So now that I have a better understanding of it, and like you said, you're not in the draft, and I think the only reason that right now that people be deterred is because of the political climate that we're in right now. Like, read the temperature of the room. Like, Trump has already just promised that he's gonna get rid of Palestinians in Gaza, right? Me personally, if there was a draft and I had not a draft, but if I was selected a service, I'm the type of person where it's like I'm not going to fly 300,000 miles away to go hate somebody who I never met before. You know what I mean? It's just not. It's just God didn't make me that way. You know what I mean? So for me, I rather advocate for us just treating people with respect and decency and offering a livable wage because how are we supposed to take care of the country when we can't even take care of our own communities and find the means
Ourselves, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I feel like we're asking a lot from people who are already disadvantaged. And that to me is my big main point, because I don't want, as a black, especially as a black person, and especially as a young black person, I don't want to feel like I'm preying on the youth and not offering them economic advantages based off of this one thing. And I know for a lot of people it would be a deterrent. So if there was a possibility in the future to get this appealed or maybe get this admonished or remitted in some type of way, I mean, I would focus my efforts towards that, just because I know that like me personally, I'm aiming to help young people, and I know that these young people are already at an extreme disadvantage already. So and it's, for lack of better words, and this is with all honesty and transparency and in my personal opinion, and doesn't reflect our partnerships with anybody or affiliation. However, in my personal opinion, it feels like we're preying upon the youth a little bit, and I don't like that. It doesn't feel nice to me. And as somebody who aims to represent the youth and my local constituents, it's something that I would advocate against, because I feel like it is a huge deterrent. And even knowing the pros and benefits of it, I just think that it being involved really is detrimental to a lot of people's economic futures. You know what I mean? So for me, it's just something I think about, even though I know it's a positive now. It's still something that I'm on the fence.
Right. Well, that's why I want to have these crucial conversations with the people who have not been engaged, invited into these rooms to discuss the facts. Because if they don't have the opportunity to know these facts are being delivered by somebody that they can potentially trust, then it's really not going to be well received. But as long as you have people who are willing to come into the room and hear the facts, then they have to be able to make informed decisions on whether or not they are going to run and hide from the facts, or they're going to do something with the facts. And then that's when you can start to figure out who you can actually advocate for and help to try and figure out what are those options for them. But if they don't opt in and want to know, you can't help people who don't want to be helped.
Exactly.
And those are the things that I think a lot of young people aren't given the chance to be helped because they don't know the facts.
Well, and any entity that gets government funding in any way, even tax credits, has to abide by this law. So do we want to not service youth?
Well, I think if people knew the facts and they were able to draw their conclusions based on good sense and sensibilities of what is the ultimate goal for, I think, all of us, which, really, again, we're here in this country because we have more potential freedoms to make choices. If you want to lose those freedoms, if you don't think those choices have any value, then that's all you can do, is give people an opportunity to decide whether they want to get on the right side of making decisions or they want to have people make decisions for them. Because that's what's going to happen.
Before Vietnam, there wasn't a draft. There wasn't a selective service. But when they had Vietnam, they started the draft. Nobody was registered. They still drafted you by your birth date and social security number. So whether or not you sign up for the selective service, if they decide they need more people in the military, they're going to draft you.
Right. And then it doesn't really become an issue of anything else other, as you said, but your social security number. You're in a lottery system and they just draw you. And if you're of age, and this is really the fact, the only people who are disqualified are people who are aged out. And that's not 26, Wyken. That means everybody. Everybody is eligible to go. And that's the way it is. And if our present administration decided he wanted to go to war and create a draft because we are under manpower, that's what we're faced with, is that everybody can go. So
I actually was drafted. But it was because my name was Renee, spelled like a boy.
Oh,
Because at the
Wow.
time they couldn't draft women. But I thought it was funny.
Wow.
Only because I couldn't go.
Yeah. So those are the things that, again, just fact finding so that people at least have the facts and we can serve them by giving them more education, information that, they'll never know unless somebody gives it to them. But how it all ties to safety, to career aspirations, all these things that can be tied together to give people some roadmap from governance to things that on the way people have individual plans to get somewhere where they're not. And that's what I think these crucial conversations could be about. Now, and Renee, now, how many of the people in the HBCU system know about? I have talked about selective service.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, again, because it just blindsided these guys. They're like, "What? What is that? For who and for what? But what?" So,
I really think the high schools are supposed to educate people on that. But
and how
yeah,
many
I
people
think
who are not? Yeah,
high school level would be great because these are people who are about to be 18 or if not already. And it goes back to like something simple as taxes. I mean, these are things that like we should be taught in high school because
Yeah.
having this information and lack of it is why people are so apprehensive and scared to have these kind of discussions because as young people, it's like the Danny Kruger effect. You don't know how much you don't know until you know. You know what I mean? So it's like we think that we know it all. However, we have a lack of information and an information. Um, it's not even an information drought. We have so much information. There's so much public resources and public information online being disseminated every single day. And it's like for me, especially as a young person and a mentee of Kevin, what I've appreciated is being in these kinds of rooms where this information is being actively encouraged and spread. So that way, as a young person, I can educate myself further and advocate for these kind of things because my biggest thing as somebody with political aspirations is I don't want to be the guy who knows nothing and tells you everything. You know what I mean? If I don't know what I'm talking about, I'd rather stay quiet and listen to the people who do rather than articulate something that is neither here nor there and has no substance or essence in the conversation. You know what I mean? So for me, the more information that I get is beautiful because now I can pass on information to people who are my age, you know what I mean? And we can make informed decisions rather than just speculating what are the alternatives.
right. So guys, I think I've got to wrap. Renee, do you have any questions, suggestions, or comments? Because I do want them to work on helping me submit for the grant that you sent around housing issues, housing the workforce, but also anything else that we can think of that involved housing. I think you, with the California Jobs First grants and all these other initiatives, grants, whatever, we need somebody who knows the nuts and bolts of housing, the housing complex, because you know, it is
it's
really
a
important that
monster.
we know what
It's a
housing.
monster.
Yeah.
So I was thinking throughout the whole conversation that one of the things that we have identified is that in our proposal, we definitely need advocates and or mentors, and maybe peer advocates and mentors. I'm not sure, but we need that because there is just so much to navigate.
Well, that's what these guys are. These guys are the people that need to be part of the mentoring equation because they can be more relatable to younger people now more than ever than people like me. Because the biggest issue is how do people even find a mentor? Well, these guys are offering up themselves and other people like themselves to help the people just a rung of ladder below them so that they can have people who look like them, talk like them, culture wise, gaming, whatever, have a little bit more trust And so that's what I'm going to advocate for is them being an advocation machine for young people, for, doing things for young people by young people.
I
So
think
it's in the proposal.
Well, it hasn't been, but that's why I'm trying to get them up to speed so that they can be the faces of these people who say that, yeah, we want to be part of the machine to advocate that we need to be for young people by young people. A lot of people would say, well, gee, what does that look like?
if I could interject real quick, just based off of that, one of the things that I think would be an easy alignment would be incorporating that mentorship program in part of the dormitory program where we find other people who are doing work placement programs and combine them together. So that way, if they do get subsidized housing, we can provide roommates who are also gaining access to those economic advantages. And because those people are both in alignment as far as the workforce program, finding a mentor that aligns with these two applicants would be very easy, because I mean we're going to have a robust program of people who are entry level and at basically administrative level, entering and leaving. So maybe there's a way to incentivize the people who complete our program to come back on as alumni mentors, you know what I mean, and educate people further in how to successfully navigate these programs and continue to find these economic benefits.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
it's almost like an avocation instead of a conservation corps. It'd be an avocation corps. Is finding a core of people who cycle into advocating for some things that will help people get to become the kind of citizens that we may not have right now because you're just not plugged into all the things that they could actually do to make changes, differences in what young people need to know and consume at a younger age. Because I don't think a lot of people just think that young people aren't ready for this kind of conversation, to tell you the truth.
Secondly, I think that there needs to be some sort of goal setting done with the people who are actually accepted into the program. Written goal setting that they get a copy of and you keep a copy of. Because that's how the Family Self-Sufficiency Program works. And goals are not like set in cement, but you have to, like you said earlier, Kevin, you have to know where you're going.
Yeah.
So I think that should be part of the proposal.
Yeah. Well, I think the goal for me has always been for self-sufficiency and for setting standards is how to get some type of prevailing W-2 or W-9 economic opportunity, whatever that means. W-9 is a small business, as a career. W-2, something that's going to get you off of the government subsidies rolls. Whatever those numbers are, those are the goals, is to match those numbers up with individual plans. And everybody who has a North Star or a wish has to have numbers plugged in to make this stuff make sense. Because without the data being crunched, no one will really have a successful destination for what they have to do to get there and the time they have to get there. And
So yeah, I'm talking about individual goals.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's plan isn't going to look the same.
Yeah.
And there are people who are going to need mental health counseling.
Yeah, it's almost like an IEP. I mean, everybody needs a certain IEP, but the quotient for getting their IEP set up is going to be set by some standards, some numbers of what it's going to take in order for you to be able to be self-sufficient, if you can be self-sufficient ever. And some people will at least face the numbers. Well, I'm never going to get to self-sufficiency because at some point I may elect to not challenge myself to get there. At least you can actually have that as a goal, is to be able to have a not a litmus test, a real test to figure out what are the standards to be able to live in Los Angeles County.
So I would call it an ITP, an individual training plan. as not to confuse it with the educational plan.
Educational individual EP, ITP. Okay.
Okay.
Well, those are the tools that I think need to be manufactured for anything that's going to be different than what it is now, because people have to be challenged to come up with something that doesn't exist as a tool. But and this is for Wyken. Did you get the invitation from Chris to join a Zoom call at 1 o'clock? Because
Shut up.
Think so.
because he said that he needs to. I'm very anxious to see what it is that they've come up with at this stage of the game for this event on the 22nd, so we can know. So 1 o'clock in 5 minutes, let's figure out what's going on with the 22nd.
Got you. I didn't receive the link, but if you want to send it,
I'll send it to you.
appreciate
Okay.
it.
So Renee, but these are the young men that represent at least 7 or 8 of them I met about a week and a half ago, who were all really capable of being part of his battalion. Okay.
His battalion. So yeah, why can't I'm available if you have any questions about housing.
Yes. Sorry to cut you off. Would you be able to provide your contact information in the chat below, or I can send you my contact information if it's easier?
Oh, well, I'm on my phone.
I'm gonna rope us all in. I actually recorded this meeting, so
Okay.
I'm gonna rope us in so we can actually have a recording of this meeting as well as the contact information for both Renees. Okay, guys.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, Renee.
Yes,
Thank you.
sir.
It's been a pleasure.
Okay.
Okay.
And both you guys, I'd like to have both you guys on this meeting with Chris.
Mhm.
Okay, because I'm inviting you guys in. I don't know what's going to be said, but hey, we need to. Hey, I'm looking for you guys to help me provide some. Yeah, I need you guys to tell me what you think's going on. Okay, all right, guys.
Yes, sir.
Kevin, I got a meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, we can hop in a meeting tomorrow. I'm free.
No,
You mean
I'm
Kevin invited
you mean with
me.
the California job first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right.
You guys.
Thank
All
you
right.
guys.
On to the next one.
All right. Bye bye.